Et bonjour et bienvenue dans cette nouvelle vidéo dans laquelle j'ai le plaisir d'accueillir Darrell Steen qui est astrologue et on va faire l'interview en anglais mais ça va être sous-titré donc vous allez avoir toute la traduction. All right, hi Darrell.
Hi Cecile, how are you doing? How you doing over there?
Fine, thank
We're
you
doing
so
much
much.
better over here today.
Yeah, I guess so. That was yeah, there were elections in the US. You're in the US and it was a pretty big thing over there. And not only over there, actually. All over the world, it has an influence. So
Yeah.
But anyway,
yeah. What has been going on this past year for everybody in the world? There has been a conjunction of planets in Capricorn. And conjunctions happen fairly frequently in the grand scheme of things, but this one was in the sign of Capricorn. And Capricorn is about authority figures, big business, people in power. And this conjunction has demanded that we evolve in our attitude about people in power, big business, and because the old ways are not sustainable. And that's just part of life. Everything evolves. Okay.
Right.
So in the United States in particular, every 250 years of a country's existence, there is after about 250 years, a lot of countries fall by the wayside. They lose power, things change significantly, and the United States is right there right now. It's called a Pluto return, and yes, it is an existential crisis. So what's been going on? None of this was unexpected. As far as I'm concerned, none of it was unexpected. Of course, we didn't need a chart to tell us that if Trump was elected president in 2016, that there would be a big problem. That was a real easy prediction. You know?
Yeah. All right. So thank you for going into that subject now. But I would like first to introduce you because people don't know you yet, you know. Most of them, I guess, who will watch this video. And I really want to explain what you're doing. What have you? I mean, you've been on this astrology scene since you were 16, I guess. That's what you told me.
16 years old, just 20 years ago.
Yeah, wow. So and you've been doing this professionally for 40 years already.
Full time.
And it's
this is what I do for a living. This is how I pay rent. This is how I eat. So and when I started this, it was like, I have to do this professionally, have to do this full time. Astrology is such a complicated, there's so many levels to it, but you can't do it part-time. It's got to be a full-time thing because some of these cycles are thousands of years long. So the Pluto cycle we're in now is 248 plus. And I thought, I'm not going to be a part-time astrologer. Would you go to a part-time doctor or a part-time lawyer?
Right. But I mean, a lot of people, I guess, don't know exactly what is an astrologer. I mean, a few people think it's like fortune telling, or maybe a lot of people think it is because they read that in magazines or whatever, and they don't know so much about it. But what I like and what I read on the website is that you see astrology as a spiritual and creative, I mean, it sees us as an individual who is spiritual and creative, and our birth chart shows our potential. And this is free from social or conditioning or cultural conditioning or religious one.
Exactly.
So this is really interesting to me because it really takes it to another level. And I would like to talk about it. So what is it for you exactly, astrology? And,
to me, it's a very scientific thing. I use astronomy to get the interpretations of the planets in the solar system, where they are. And it's based on observation. It's based on the fact that if 100 people have this influence, so to speak, or this astrological thing going on, and 98% of them have a particular set of circumstances, well, that's pretty clear. And it really does work at that level. But what it does is what you mentioned about it showing your uniqueness. It shows what you are free from conditioning. The chart itself, and this is just an example of what it looks like, a lot of people are familiar with the circle and all of that. It's just a map of the sky. It just shows the physical positions of the planets.
When we were born.
When you were born, when you were born, or when a wedding takes place, or when someone opens a business. We can do charts for those as well.
Oh, yeah, right.
What it does is it shows the potential. I like to think of astrology as showing you where you can exercise greater free will. In other words, it's a bad analogy, but it works to a certain degree. It's like weather forecasting. I mean, if you know a hurricane's coming, you don't know exactly if it's going to hit you, but you know what to do. You know how to take action. You know how to, if you can plan when the days are going to be sunny or whatever, more or less, you can take advantage of that. And that's what we're doing here, is looking at psychological, emotional patterns.
Yeah.
I say psychological and emotional because we human beings, we are psychological creatures. We think we're intellectual creatures first, but we are not. I mean, tell me we're intellectual creatures. And intellect is a quality that we have, but it's like a tool in the toolbox.
Yeah, right.
Psychology, getting to know oneself, the deeper. We don't know what we're doing here. I mean, on this planet, in this form, this is like, I mean, we're alien to ourselves, and we're just beginning to scratch the surface of our potential. But our society and our culture is very young. We have not been on the scene that long at all. And but this is something that I use as I can talk about, world trends and stuff like that. But my forte is talking to people one-on-one. What is your life about? And I can talk about dates and time periods and what your career should be. And it's like, I've had people, some people said that we can do the map, so I'll get to that part. But there's a very scientific, like at the full moon. Everybody knows the full moon.
Right.
That's astrology. Everybody knows about the 7-year itch in relationships. Every 7 years of something, there's that look at reality. There's that sense. That's astrology. Even the seasons, planting crops and all of it, that's astrology. Our calendars are set up based on astrology. I mean, it goes on and on and on.
Right.
And every culture. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So
I can just blah, 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 blah.
Maybe I will interrupt you at some point sometimes. I hope you don't mind. But I just want to go, for with what you were saying about the planets and the influence on every area on our lives. But most people think about the full moon, as you were talking about, like the moon and the sun. But the other planets, it's more like, a blur. We don't really know what's happening with the planets. And I would like to, maybe we can talk about your astrocartography, which is your thing after. But first, I would like to talk about the influence globally, not individually yet, but globally. How does it affect us globally? Like this year, we've been through a crazy thing you were talking about. Well, there's a technique called astrocartography or astromapping. And what it does is the chart itself is like looking at the planets where they are in the sky from the perspective of you, where you were born, being the center of the universe. Okay, but around the world, for example, right now, the sun is rising, the sun is setting right now, same time, someplace on the surface of the earth. Right.
If a person was born here right now, and they were to move to where that sun was setting or rising, the sun they would have more power, they would have more energy. Same thing. Right now, the planet Venus is rising and setting somewhere on the face of the earth. If someone was born right here, right now, and they were to move to where that was at this time, they would have better relationships. And it works so well. It's like when I do shows, this happens to be your map. I don't know if you can see that very well or not.
Yeah.
But what it does is each of those colors is a planetary energy. Mars is red, sun is yellow, of course. But the rest of the planets, and if you move to like your Saturn area, for example, like right now, Saturn is rising and setting somewhere, you will have more difficulty. If there was a way I could guarantee it, I would. but it's easy to see, because when I do a chart for somebody, I will tell them what you're experiencing where you are. When I do a chart, I tell people, I don't want to know what's going on. I'm going to tell you what I'm seeing in your chart before you tell me what's going on. There's a lot of reasons for that. And it looks rather complicated. It's like maps and stars and planets rising. And oh my God, this is so complicated, but I can distill it down to this.
Yeah, right.
This is John Lennon's chart. Okay. Yoko Ono was born in Japan, right where the red star is. The green area is Venus. Venus is about relationships.
Right.
This is Yoko Ono's chart. John Lennon was born in Liverpool, where the red star is, and that green area is right on top of it.
Wow.
Here is Bill Clinton's chart. There's that same green area, and it's right at Chicago where Hillary was born. Wherever Venus is, you're going to have better relationships. You're going to meet people from there. It's a good place to be. It's just that simple.
Yeah.
Switch gears here. This is John F. Kennedy's chart. Dallas is where the red star is, and that's where he was killed. Pluto is death and rebirth. Pluto is where you can experience psychological, emotional trauma, or where your trauma can be realized. And again, Pluto is about death and rebirth. But the thing about John F. Kennedy is, or if you go to your Pluto line, you're not going to die unless you do something dumb. But, free will is a big deal. Here is Bill Clinton's chart. And the Pluto area, there it is right there, runs right through Mecca. The red in his chart here is Mars. And wherever in the United States, wherever there is Mars, that's where there is a conflict. And it runs right through Baghdad.
Wow.
Here is Harry S. Truman's chart. And at Japan, at Korea, it's Mars. That's where the conflict was. It's Pluto, runs right between Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And it's also Saturn, which is a heavy responsibility.
Yeah.
This is the Titanic's chart. Based on when it on its maiden voyage, it sunk right at its Pluto line.
Wow.
But the yellow area before that is very good. It's self-confidence, and that's where they said, full steam ahead in the ice field. And anyway, so, and not that you'll go to those Pluto places and you'll die or sink or whatever. It's, we are here to grow, to evolve. Right. We are here as individuals and as a species to evolve. And the Pluto areas can show you where you need to evolve. And if something doesn't evolve, that means it dies. Evolution is a well, I could go on and on about that for days and days, but you get the idea. And there's better, I've got Arnold Schwarzenegger's chart here and Barack Obama. Gosh, I miss him. Anyway, Barack Obama's chart, and it goes on and on like that. And everybody.
I'd like to go deeper into that because it's really interesting because what you're showing is two things. The first thing is that we can predict some things based on I don't know how fast are moving the planets. I think it's fast. It's moving pretty fast, right? But
we are going so fast, it's crazy. Oh yeah, my God, yeah.
But that means that we can predict, and it's science. What, as you were saying, we can predict exactly the influences. But also the good thing is that we can kind of take our power back in some way by deciding accordingly in function of what's happening in our chart.
Right.
And we can decide whether we want to move to a place because one other place is not so good for business this is power to me, and this is the cool thing about what you're doing, right?
It is, because a place that's, for some people, maybe going to their Pluto place might be a good thing, depending on what they're doing. There was one guy who needed to go into therapy, needed to go into, into recovery. He went to his Pluto place and recovered for alcoholism, drug abuse, and all of that. So there's a time and a place, a season, so to speak, for everything. And like, for example, in your map here, this is yours in Europe there. You are in that orange area. And the orange area is Jupiter, where there is possibility, self-confidence, and it can be full of potential. Lines around it also can enter into where you are. And also, you don't have to go to a place to get benefit from it. Wherever there were these good places, like if you were going to do a countrywide, business-wide, worldwide business, we would say, focus your attention in this part of the country or focus your attention in that part of the country. And you will do better, period.
Yeah, right.
It's,
yeah. So we can really improve. It depends on what we want to decide and what we want to create or whatever. So
yes.
So people are coming to you to kind of make better decisions for their lives, and it's really precise. I was impressed when you did my reading that you could say that, for instance, I could meet some people potentially or some person with a relationship that day, and it could be like 5 days before. It was so precise, and I was amazed by that. So,
yeah, on the charts, what I do is I spell it out like this, where there are specific dates and time periods that are important to pay attention to. And I've written a text about all the influence. And there's 5 or 6 different pages that have dates and time periods. Here's your page number 2. I mean, it just goes on and on. And some are about career, some are about relationships, some are strong, some are weak. Yeah. But I spell it all out this way and send you that I have a text. I wrote my own stuff about the influences. I mean, you can go online and read about Pluto square sun or whatever we're looking at here, whatever the big deal influence is. But I wrote my own text based on what I have seen in my practice. And the way I have learned this is when I do a reading for somebody, I want to know what happens later. Updates. Yeah. And following this along are a part of the initial reading. In other words, I don't just do that. I throw all this stuff at you, all these papers and dates and time periods, and we talk about it. Then it's like you get a chance to think about it and digest it. Then we talk again about it. And again, it's part of the original reading, because following along with it is my continuing education.
Right.
And some of these cycles, like I said, they're hundreds of years long. So, and I've only been doing this for how many, 45, 50, a lot of years, but nowhere near 250 yet. Okay, this gets crazy. Remember in 2006, they demoted Pluto as a planet. They said Pluto wasn't a planet anymore. Well, that's ridiculous. What happened was they discovered new planets in that part of our solar system. And I have put those planets in the charts, and we are getting really good results from them. They are Maya, Makemake, Orcus, Quoar. There's several others that are like, they talk about the evolution of the species. They talk about bigger pictures, like Pluto talks about the idea. It's trying to get us to understand that we are psychological creatures, that we all are motivated by psychology. And the more that, and we all have psychological problems because we were programmed when we were kids from our culture, from our parents, from our religion, and a lot of things that we're supposed to do and supposed to be like, a lot of us aren't. And that's where we get the problem. Someone's trying to be something they're not. Yeah, and this chart can show you what you're good at, what your qualities are, free of that conditioning. Yeah, that's its value, that's its power.
Yeah, that's powerful. So I would like to, maybe it's going to be a funny question, but anyway, I'm asking it to you. How does this influence work? Because, we know, for instance, that the moon with the tides of the ocean, I mean, it's water and we are more than 70% water. So it makes sense to me that we are, our emotions and things are, kind of moving when there is a full moon. So, but what about the other planets?
They are technically like Pluto, for example. Let's go back to Pluto. It's so far away and so small. It's like, how in the world can you extrapolate something from that? And again, logically, intellectually, it doesn't make sense based on our level of understanding. Right. But how much do we really know? Right. If I like to think of it like this, I'd imagine aliens come down to the Earth and they're at a busy intersection and they see that red light come on, and most of these vehicles going 100 miles an hour or whatever, they stop. Then the green light comes on and they go. You could conclude that the red light is making them stop. Right. I think it's akin to that. And it's like a big biorhythm. Remember biorhythms back in the 80s? There was a 28-day cycle, a 30-day cycle, 32. Okay, these are cycles that are like the Saturn cycle is 29 years long, divided into 7-year cycles. Yeah. And that's and you can see it in your life. Every 7 years of living somewhere, every 7th year of a job, every 7th year of a relationship, there is not so much a problem as it is you really can see clearly the glass of water being half empty. Because this is reality. I deal with reality here. Knowledge or dealing with science and reality. Yeah. So anyway, so you can see those cycles in your own life. And to make the point in these readings, I do go back in the past to the last major influence, wherever it was, and talk about that. Then talk about the present, and talk about your personality. But anyway, how this works mechanically, I will. We don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, how does anything work mechanically? I mean, we could say that over billions of years, a little tiny planet out there orbiting eventually will make a resonance. A little tiny planet over and over. There's something in the space is being disturbed. And time and space are the same thing. But when that space is disturbed, and even quantum mechanics talks about the idea of entanglement, that something can happen in one place in the universe and it can happen in the same place here. So when you look at all those things together, it's like, and the universe is filled with energy. They just discovered the Higgs boson particle, which means there's a Higgs field around us. Look that up. That means there's another energy field around us, and neutrinos are passing through us billions of every second. And we're awash in energy. So we're just looking at those cycles. And like we're looking at the full moon and saying, at that date, you're going to be more emotional. And, if you're at police departments and hospital rooms on those nights, you should hire extra staff.
Yeah, right.
I mean, it's and then we look at your chart.
We can really see it in our daily lives, and we can really see the influence.
Yeah. And I know it is very contrary to what we're taught the universe should be. But what do we really know about our physical natures? Yeah. We don't, so that's part of the discovery. And a lot of scientists will say, well, we shouldn't study astrology because it's silly, but they don't have any proof that it doesn't work. In fact, there was a French astrologer, a French statistician, and I cannot pronounce his name right, Gauquelin, in the 40s, and he decided he was going to disprove astrology once and for all, and he got the charts, the whole chart, not just the sun sign, because the sun sign by itself is not a thing. The charts of 1,000 actors, 1,000 politicians, 1,000 scientists, and guess what he found out? It does work. That Mercury rose. Mercury is about communication. Wherever Mercury is in your chart was where you're going to be able to communicate effectively. And a lot of writers and speakers have a prominent Mercury in their chart. And guess what? They did. And athletes have a prominent Mars. Mars is physical energy. And guess what? It was prominent. He actually, by trying to disprove it, he proved it.
Yeah, right. So according to our birth chart, we have kind of a path in our lives, and we can know what's going to happen, the influences, like in certain periods of our lives, right? And but also there is an influence with the interaction with other people, and so how can we optimize all this? I mean,
Yeah, it gets pretty crazy. Like, when I do a reading, I get real wound up and we talk about career and relationships and this potential and that potential. And, I can see times when it's more likely a person would become involved in a relationship. You always have free will to say no. But there's more times that are likely. And I can say at this time in your psychological, personal development based on the date that you were born, that this year there's going to be a relationship that could be dramatic and powerful. Let it take its time. You might fall in love at first, but be careful. Or I could say, this is a good time for relationships. Go for it, full tilt. Or I can say, don't. But, I never really say don't. My personality is such that I don't like the idea of waiting or don't do something or stop. It's always go into it with your eyes wide open. And we'll discuss it as time goes on. So I can see those time periods. And there's the part of that is that 7-year itch cycle in relationships. I'll be looking at an influence that happens, let's say, once every 200 years in someone's chart. And I'll ask them, how long have you two been together? And they'll say 7 years. And I'll add, okay, there's another level of a concern or a need to look at what's really going on. And like in relationships, it is the individual's willingness to do their own psychological work that makes relationships work. I can take 2 charts and make a compatibility, and it can be the best compatibility in the world on paper. But if one or the other individuals will not grow, will not evolve, will not grow beyond their conditioning, the relationship won't work. And that's true of a lot of things.
Yeah. So what you're saying is that what you're giving in some ways perspective to people and a way to take a little bit zoom out and this is going on, and now I can decide, and I have my free will in some way.
Yeah, and it's like I'm not objective, and nobody's objective. I have my biases. That's what I tell people. I have my biases. This is maybe my bias talking, but you know what we do in order to see the universe and see our place in it properly, we have to see it through a lot of sets of eyes. There's no way one person can get an accurate view of the universe or society or people. It's called triangulation. You get views from several different points of view. It's like in time and space. To find the right point, you've got to have you've got to have triangulation.
Yeah.
So I am one of those triangulators. I am one of those people that can be a confirmation. Because really in the chart, there really isn't anything I can't tell you that you really don't know yourself at some level.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, exactly. I worry when people don't see that or don't. When, I always want to go into a reading, it's like, well, I hope this person is doing this, and I hope their relationship is this way, and if they are, it's great. I agree with them. Oh, yeah, I can have some pretty harsh words.
Yeah.
Well, not harsh, but
in some ways, maybe.
Oh, yeah. And we all want to believe stuff. We all want to believe what we think is right. We all can have misperceptions about the universe. Just like over here with the, what they call it a political divide over here. I call it a moral divide. These people are immoral in my book. But, they're struggling. They're trying their best. They think they have the answers. And all of us are capable of misreading reality, which is why we have to have triangulation.
Right. So you're doing several maps when you do your reading, and there is what you call the mundane map and the local map and the world map. So can you talk a little bit about that and what's the difference? And,
okay. This is your local, I don't know if you can see that very well, but that's your local space. And the lines radiate out from where you were born.
Right.
And they circle the earth and come back to the same place at polar opposite, and the same rules apply. If you're at the Saturn area, the purple area, you will have more difficulties. There will be more delays. There will be more. The local space, though, is how you feel about an area. You know how you could feel like I'd really love to live and go to that area, and you go there and it's not that good, or vice versa. The mundane map, this map here, this is someone else's in Australia, for example.
Yeah.
This map shows how the world treats you. Now, this person lives right now in where is it? Oh, yeah, it's Melbourne, which is the Pluto moon area. And the first thing I'm going to say is, why the hell are you there? That is not a good place. How did you end up there? I do it that way to indicate that I'm really like, this is a big deal. This is not a if maybe. This is like, you need to go over to Adelaide where the sun is shining. That's the yellow area. When this person was born, the sun was shining there. Over here in Melbourne, it was not. So it's actually a physical type thing. And then so it's like how the mundane map is like how the world treats you. Right. And if you go to your like Mercury area, you're going to be more communicative because Mercury, wherever Mercury is in your chart, it talks about how you communicate, what words mean to you, how your mind functions. And everybody has all 12 signs in them. No one's ever just an Aries or a Taurus, or all 12 are there. And you can have your sun in one sign, but Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, they can all be in other signs completely. And sometimes that's why sometimes some people look at their sun signs and it's like, that doesn't fit me very well. Well, probably because there's a lot of other planets. I'm a Capricorn by sun sign, so I'm supposed to be practical and logical, and I can be, but major feature of my chart is Mars and Aries. And Aries is impulsive and impatient, and it's what I call my spasticness. This energy that you're seeing that's almost like a little kid with a rock saying, hey, look at this. So part of me is not Capricorn, but part of me is Aries. And the same thing with you, Cecile. You've got, let's look at your chart here real quick.
Aries and Cancer. Is that Cancer in English?
Yeah, it's, where did I put your chart? I can have papers flying all over the room and not figure, not. But yeah, whatever your sun sign is, your moon sign can be any other of the 12 signs. And it may be more powerful or more prominent based on the map, based on the time of day that you were born. I mean, if you were born at night at a full moon and the full moon shining in the sky really bright, the moon's going to be stronger in your chart, in your personality, in your life.
Yeah, right. Yeah, so and it depends also on the time of our lives. Like it can be like the first part of our life, we are more influenced by one planet or one sign, and the other part is different. I think I'm Pisces, moon and Pisces, I think, and I'm Aries. So it's like water and fire.
Okay. Aries sun, that means you are energetic, you get things done, you are self-starting, you are self-motivated. But the moon in Pisces is very different. Moon in Pisces is spiritual. It has a restless imagination that just won't quit, that demands that you study this, learn that, be involved with that. There's an intuitiveness with moon in Pisces that demands that you need your alone time. You need your space. I like to think of a space, not just alone time, but the space where there's no sound, a space where there's no outside stimulus, so you can get to, because with the moon in Pisces, there's all this stuff going on. And of course, Sun in Aries is physically wanting to get stuff done. Yeah, so together is like, this active imagination and this active physical presence. So you get stuff done spiritually. But again, you need your alone time. Don't ever sacrifice that or you'll be sorry. And see, in your case, if you told me, you lived at this place and this, and you didn't get your privacy, I'd say, well, then you're going insane, aren't you?
Yeah. I mean, it's really cool because with this, we get to know ourselves more, to be more confident in some way, because we know we function in certain ways, and that's, we can, of course, change a few things and work on ourselves to do the inner work and the psychological work to evolve and to maybe go into one direction.
Exactly.
We get to know ourselves, and I think this is...
like with my chart, for example, I have no Virgo in my chart. So, sometimes, so people around me who are Virgos, that's very good for me because they have a perspective I don't. And sometimes it's irritating to me because they get to those details and it's like, God, why are you doing that minutia thing? I don't do that. So they give me a perspective I can't see, and vice versa. Like I said, it's irritating. But if I were to, the stuff that we all have deficiencies, we all have strengths, and you will be more successful in life if you understand your weaknesses better than your strengths.
Right. Yeah, because we can also choose our business partners or colleagues, or I don't know, or anyone we can work with or have a relationship with, so that they can kind of complete or they have their strengths which are helpful when we have weaknesses in some fields. So
and it's not just the sun sign. Like I said, because everybody has all 12 signs, and the signs are actually the qualities of life that we all have to delve into at some level to live a well-rounded life. One of the signs is about career. One of the signs is about relationships. One's about home and family. One's about friendships. One's about spirituality. And all 12 of them are important. And 12 is a big number in society. 12 is a number that appears a lot throughout history. Our clocks are set according to astrology. There's 12, 12 months, 12 this. 12 is everywhere because it's a number that is, it goes into the esoteric number thing about the 360 degrees, and it goes on and on. But the idea is that these 12 areas of life, it's important to delve into them to a lesser degree or greater degree than others. But those are the 12 signs. So it's not just that you're an Aries and I'm a Capricorn and, oh my God, no.
And in astrology, you were talking about the 12 houses, What is it exactly? Can you just explain? I don't want to go too further because it would be like going into the vocabulary.
There's 12. There's 12 signs, and they're divided up based on the seasons. They're not based on the constellations. The constellations are not the signs. They are different. The signs are based on the seasons. It's called the tropical zodiac, and it divides it up into 12. And it starts at the spring equinox, and 12 signs after that. And then the houses are dividing the sky up from the earth in 12 different ways. So it's like another dimension of the same thing. You've got signs as one dimension, houses as another dimension, and planets as the third dimension.
Yeah.
So like for example, Aries is ruled by Mars and the first house. And the first house it just shows physically. It's about where you are physically on the face of the earth, like the maps. But the signs are about the sky out there, or what the planets are moving through. And the houses are the space in your world that you're moving through. There's a direct one-to-one relationship, a direct line between the signs and the houses. Yeah. And again, they just show another dimension, and the planets are a third dimension. And all three have to be taken into consideration in order to get that instead of like a map being a two-dimensional piece of paper, the maps and the planet signs and houses turns it into a sphere. And you have to look at it from that three-dimensional point of view. So yeah, it gets real.
That's a big thing. So the astro cartography is taking into account these three dimensions, three dimensions, right? And this is kind of something you created because other astrologers, they don't go through the three dimensions, right?
Yeah, the coloring system, that's mine, so to speak. Yeah. I developed that by marrying the chart to the map astronomically, and I wrote a paper about it that's very, very technical, and it wouldn't make any sense unless you understood natal astrology thoroughly. But it's a proof about why I'm doing it this way. Astrocartography came into being in the 70s and 80s with computers, and a lot of people started applying a set of rules to these maps that don't follow the chart, that don't follow the reality, and some astrologers say the maps don't even work because they're using the wrong rules. They're not. It's not consistent. How it got that way, I'm not sure. How we got to the point where it's. But the system I'm looking at here really demarks where a planet is and where it's not, just like in the chart. So this coloring system is based on the idea of the planets rising and setting, just like in the maps, and so it marries the two together. And the paper that I wrote, and also I'm also going to hopefully do some YouTube videos myself to explain it technically. Yeah. But it gets really like crazy talking about prime verticals and ecliptics and right ascension, and it gets astronomy. Don't do astronomy, which is too bad. But I get it. It's very mundane. It's like. But it's the anatomy of astrology is the solar system, and like for example, the planet Uranus rules that, or wherever it is in your chart is where you're going to be eccentric, different. You're going to you hear the beat of a different drum. You are an individual. You're not like everybody else. Uranus in the sky, all the planets have a north-south pole, very degrees. Uranus has an east-west pole. It spins on its side. It's different than the rest of them. Therefore, it is different. It's unique. And that's what it means in the chart.
Yeah, right.
So, yeah.
Yeah, it's very specific and technical, and taking into account all these parameters, you get to produce a card that is suitable for us, for every individual, right? It's really personalized. Okay, great. Before we finish this interview, I just like to ask you, because so we are in 2020 right now, at the end of 2020 almost, and I heard that some things are going to get better for the world in some way at the beginning of 2021. Yes. So
I talk to people. Yeah, I talk to people all over the world. And I have noticed that everybody I talk to, 90 to 95% of them, and they're all biased in two different ways. They believe in astrology and they talk to me. So those are two biases that are strong. But everybody at January 15th is having a set of influences. It's a Uranian influence, by the way. It talks about freedom, independence, being able to move forward. And that's how I was able to predict this COVID thing and what's going on, because there was a thing in January 12th of 2020. It talked about this downturn, that talked about this problem that is like a near-death experience. Well, now at the beginning of 2021, it's more positive. And I don't think it's just because of the election. I mean, I could go on and on about that. That is a piece of the puzzle. But with this conjunction that has happened, our whole attitude about government and who's in charge has to evolve. It's not just us against them, and we have to deal with reality. You know, I mean, I've upset a few people by saying that statement about we don't have a political divide, we have a moral divide, and Trump is an idiot and all that. But, you know, and you don't need a chart to tell you that. But it's about reality. It's about the fact that we are creatures in this earth, and there are certain rules in nature we have to abide by. So, but there is this thing that happens, and it's not like a big event on January 15th, but that's when it begins, and it goes throughout the year. I don't know if it's a vaccine. It may be a combination of several different things, but people are going to have more freedom, but whether, like, for example, in the United States, we are still having our Pluto return, and we are not out of the woods yet as far as our political system. We could go into, and we already started into obscurity. And whether we continue with that or not, that's up to us. But I always say, never underestimate immorality or stupidity. And I don't mean that as an insult. I mean it as a reality. Because people that don't pay attention to reality, something's wrong. But God love them. Again, we're trying our best. All of us are with what we've got, but we just keep going. And what I do is I can tell you individually where your good path is, where your freedom path is, where you can step out from all of this stuff and be your own individual. And again, since it's happening to people all over the world, it's not just a United States thing. We always think we're the center of the universe. And we're seeing our reality. But seeing reality is the first step towards fixing it.
Yeah, right.
And our reality is just really not nearly as good as we thought it was in the United States. And see, in France, Bastille Day, isn't that when would that be equivalent to our July 4th Independence Day?
Yeah.
Am I interpreting that correctly?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
That you're going to have your Pluto return in about 10 to 15 years, because the Bastille Day was what, 1787, 1788? Yeah. So you are going to go through your Pluto return in about 10 or 15 years. But the degree of difficulty depends on what you do about it. It's just here's this turning point. Are you going to slow down to make the turn? Or are you going to try to make the turn at 100 miles an hour? And that's what we're doing. We're trying to make the turn at 100 miles an hour.
Yeah, right. And so basically, what we can take from that is saying that we can really live our life, whatever the external things, there will always be external things happening. And right now we are kind of living in it's enhanced in some way, but whatever happens, I mean, we can decide to lead our life and according to our chart and what the influences are. And this is, again, taking our personal power in some way, and whatever happens, we can do that, right?
Exactly. That's the beauty of this, is no matter what system you have around you, you can work with. It's up to you to make your life better. We're influenced by everybody around us, and we are a social species, and none of us we need each other. What happens in one part of the world does affect everybody else, which is part of the lesson of this time. That's part of nature. I mean, there's only a finite amount of space on the earth, but the resources in that are infinite if we manage them correctly. It's a paradox, so it's true. But that's part of the learning. That's part of our, growing up as a species. And we will. And, if by some horrible thing we don't, if we do wipe ourselves out or whatever, in a few million years, a new species will evolve and they can have a go at it.
Yeah.
It's up to us to save ourselves. It's up to us. And that means every individual acting within their own unique parameters to do what's best for them. And if you do that, mindful of everybody else, all of society can be lifted up.
Yeah, right. So thank you so much for this message, and we will put all the links to find you, and I guess if everyone is doing their reading with you, they can have really lead things and move forward the right way. So that's cool. Thank you so much, Darrell. again.
Thank you so much.
Talk to you soon.